The U.S. Navy's Military Sealift Command is the largest shipping company in the United States and the premier provider of ocean transportation support to the Department of Defense and our coalition partners around the world, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Civil Service Mariners, or CIVMARS, make up the largest segment of MSC's global workforce. MSC is committed to complying with U.S. and international safety and environmental protection rules, regulations, and standards, including compliance with the International Maritime Organization's International Safety Management Code, or ISM, through the development and implementation of a comprehensive safety management system, commonly known as the SMS. MSC's SMS is designed to provide a safe working environment for our employees and to protect the environment and our assets. Ships have a variety of confined spaces that have proven historically hazardous to ship operators around the world. In fact, confined space work is one of the leading causes for occupational fatalities in the U.S. And while confined space entry programs have been around for decades, mishaps still happen. Complacency and not following procedures have been at the root of many confined space accidents and deaths across the shipping industry. Knowledge of the potential hazards and proper preparation prior to entering a confined space can literally save lives. First, let's begin with a clear understanding of what confined spaces are and why they can be so dangerous. A confined space is defined as a space large enough for an employee to enter and perform work, a space with limited or restricted means for entry or exit, and a space that is not designed for continuous occupancy for an employee to enter and do work. Onboard crew members have to enter enclosed spaces for a number of reasons, including routine tank inspections, cleaning of tanks or holds, and maintenance including painting, repairing, and other shipboard tasks. Entering any designated confined space on MSC vessels requires a gas-free certificate. We'll explore those procedures and checklists in a moment. What makes confined spaces so dangerous? Confined spaces may present a number of hazards, ranging from environmental to man-made concerns, such as excessive water, debris, or dust accumulation. The three primary hazards, however, that may represent an environment considered immediately dangerous to life and health are an oxygen-deficient atmosphere, toxic vapors, and explosive fumes, accelerants, etc. Normal oxygen atmosphere contains between 20.8 to 21% oxygen. Oxygen-deficient atmosphere is anything below 19.5%, as defined by OSHA. Workers exposed to oxygen-deficient atmosphere at various increments experience a range of symptoms, from minor disorientation and weakness to impaired judgment, nausea, vomiting, breathing problems, fainting, and ultimately loss of consciousness and even death. An oxygen-enriched atmosphere of more than 22% can also prove dangerous, creating an environment conducive to fires or explosions. Confined spaces on MSC ships must be marked with danger signs in accordance with federal regulations. All permit-required space signs shall state "Danger, Permit Required, Confined Space, Do Not Enter," or similar verbiage. The most common confined spaces on board ships are double bottoms, void spaces, fuel and water tanks, cargo holds, chain lockers, engine crankcases, cofferdams, boiler water sides and fire sides, ventilation and exhaust ducts, pipelines, and condensers. Each ship must maintain a list of all confined spaces. MSC's SMS Procedure 2.1-001-ALL, Confined Space Entry, establishes confined space entry procedures to minimize the risks for all personnel on board MSC ships associated with working in confined spaces. This procedure warns that every confined space shall be treated as though it poses a deadly threat. Any space that has limited access and is poorly ventilated is capable of causing injury, illness, or death to a worker. Accidents have occurred from failure to recognize that a confined space is a potential hazard. As soon as any part of the body breaks the plane of an opening, you have entered the confined space. So, before you even think about going in, there are several important steps and preparations MSC requires prior to entering a confined space. Let's look more closely at what you need to keep in mind. When work necessitates confined space entry, the first step is to certify that a tank or other confined space is gas-free and safe for entry and/or the specific work conducted in that space. A certified marine chemist is the primary means for certifying that a space is safe for entry. A gas-free engineer may certify that a space is safe for entry in an emergent situation for MSC personnel only. If the ship's gas-free engineer is certifying the confined space for entry, he or she will use MSC's Confined Space Entry Checklist and Permit. Any contractor or shipyard requiring an area to be certified gas-free shall provide an NFPA certified marine chemist, certified industrial hygienist, or other competent person as appropriate under the provisions of 29 CFR 1915.7. Contract certified marine chemists and personnel gas-freeing for contractors and shipyards may use proprietary forms and checklists to enter and certify that a space is gas-free and safe for the work being conducted. Procedures are outlined in the SMS procedure, ship's use of a certified marine chemist and contractor, shipyard requirement for establishing gas-free conditions. Declaring a confined space safe for entry and work means that it meets important criteria prior to entry, including oxygen content by volume of at least 19.5% and below 22%. The concentration of flammable vapors is below 10% of the lower explosive limit, or LEL. Any toxic materials are within permissible concentrations at the time of the inspection or have been successfully mitigated. Any residues or materials associated with authorized work will not produce an uncontrolled release of toxic materials under existing atmospheric conditions. The only personnel authorized for certification are the contracted certified marine chemist or the ship's gas-free engineer. Assigned by the ship's master, the gas-free engineer has been trained and qualified to conduct testing of confined spaces. He or she is responsible for ensuring that the entry plan recognizes the dangers, properly evaluates each situation, and takes measures to control and minimize all hazards.
With whatever you're climbing, 3-point of contact, right? Especially these long drop tanks, always want to use as much as possible, right? Always use
To assist with risk identification and mitigation, apart from implementing MSC's SMS Confined Space Entry Procedure, the gas-free engineer should also consider the application of other relevant SMS procedures such as ORM, PPE, industrial rescue, as well as fall protection and its associated ship class fall hazard analysis. MSC's SMS spells out the gas-free engineer's procedures, responsibilities, and training requirements in greater detail. A contract-certified marine chemist holds a current marine chemist certificate issued by the National Fire Protection Association. When a non-emergency confined space entry is required, whenever possible, a marine chemist certified by the NFPA or overseas equivalent shall inspect and certify the space safe for workers and/or safe for hot work. Now, let's look more closely at what MSC requires before any confined space entry. Every confined space entry on an MSC vessel has a two-step permit process. The first step is the pre-entry checklist and permit. The second step includes the gas-free certificate, issued by the certified marine chemist or the gas-free engineer. The confined space entry checklist and permit, completed by the gas-free engineer or certified marine chemist, includes several sections, all of which must be completely filled out. The first section includes specifics about the ship, its location, and the type of work to be done in the confined space. The next section applies to when there is a need to isolate the confined space to be entered with a barrier to prevent any liquids or free-flowing solids from entering the confined space. Pre-entry preparations include critical steps that must be in place prior to entry. At least 2 air changes prior to entry into a confined space must be completed, and the ventilation verified using atmospheric tests. It's recommended that the space be opened the day before entry and allowed to ventilate for at least 12 hours. The space shall remain continuously ventilated until the work is completed and the space resealed. Confirm that the gas-free certificate is current and posted. Confirm that a rescue plan has been developed and briefed with the standby person and the rescue team. The size and configuration of a rescue team depends on the difficulty and complexity of an anticipated rescue and atmospheric conditions of the confined space. Ensure blocks to rig rescue lines are on station as needed. Make sure that tending lines and harnesses of sufficient length and strength to enable the removal of an injured person are on station at the entry point to the confined space. Provide sufficient and proper lighting and radios and ensure that all are intrinsically safe. Ensure a rescue litter, defibrillator or AED, and a CPR-qualified individual are on board. Make sure that you have the right number of backup self-contained breathing apparatus bottles on hand based on the complexity of a rescue. The Confined Space Entry Checklist and Permit also includes a section about the shore-based team and contact information in the event that shore-based rescue may be called for. Make sure emergency signals with tank workers, the standby person, the watch officer, the rescue team, and the chief mate have been established and are known. If any hot work is to be done in the confined space, a separate hot work permit must be issued using the SMS Hot Work Checklist and Permit. The next section of the Confined Space Entry Checklist identifies likely hazards to be in the confined space, ensuring the best preparation to avoid any injury or worse. Once all of the pre-entry requirements have been met, then the entry requirements begin. The gas-free engineer and the rescue team must wear proper personal protective equipment, a self-contained breathing apparatus, a safety harness, a tending line, and have communications equipment. A standby person, assigned by the gas-free engineer, stays outside the space communicating with the workers inside and must be capable of supervising rescue operations. Make sure to notify the ship's watch officer at the time of entry. The gas-free engineer visually inspects and tests the space for oxygen levels and any flammable or toxic contaminants. All confined spaces are considered immediately dangerous to life or health until ventilated and certified gas-free. MSC's SMS emphasizes safety of crew members and shore-based personnel working on board. With a confined space entry and its inherent dangers, a standby person plays a crucial role in the event of an emergency. He or she must remain outside the space at all times when people are in the space except to get help in an emergency. Ensure that the confined space is not tampered with. Be aware of changing conditions in the space and inform the gas-free engineer. Keep an accurate list and count of people working within the confined space by staying in regular contact with all entrants. Maintain the conditions and requirements as listed on the Confined Space Entry Permit. Notify everyone to evacuate the space if a hazardous condition is observed. And sound the alarm for the rescue team to muster and prepare for casualty evacuation if communication with those in the confined space is lost or an accident is suspected. After careful preparations, the gas-free engineer or certified marine chemist will issue a gas-free certificate confirming that tests were conducted and the status of a space at the time of the test. The certificate will indicate the type of work that is permitted in the space and the required precautions to follow. A copy of the gas-free certificate shall be posted at the worksite. Gas-free certificates are valid for 24 hours only, unless the conditions noted on the certificate change. All certificates must be closed out after a maximum of 24 hours or renewed within 24 hours. When an MSC vessel needs repair or maintenance work in a contracted shipyard, it's up to the contractor, not the ship's gas-free engineer, to properly certify that an area is gas-free, as required under federal regulations. When MSC and contractor personnel conduct work in a confined space, the ship's GFE shall verify that the gas-free certificate posted at the space is current and covers the work to be performed. Confined space entry procedures must be well coordinated so that employees from all entities don't endanger each other. Commander, Military Sealift Command Instruction 5103.1 Shipyard Safety provides additional information on the importance of formulating a shipyard safety plan and deliberate coordination between the ship's force and shipyard safety supervisors. MSC ships have experienced mishaps that require an injured worker to be extricated from work areas, including many confined spaces. Knowing how to initiate and execute a confined space rescue can literally save a fellow mariner. The SMS provides guidance in the event that an emergency arises during confined space entry, including standby communications, a standby person, and rescue gear. The most important component of mishap response is to ensure rescue scene safety. In the case of confined space rescues, the victim is usually unconscious or incapacitated and unable to provide any assistance in the rescue operation.
So anytime we're going to enter a tank, we're going to develop a rescue plan. And we're all going to get together and I'm going to say, Haas, you're the designated SCV Aidman 1, Roger, you're number 2.
A rescue plan is required for tank entries and must be noted on the Confined Space Entry checklist and permit. The plan must identify how to contact rescuers if shore-based response is required, hazards to rescuers, and potential anchor points for rigging rescue equipment. The rescue plan should also coordinate with local professional rescue units. Each ship shall maintain rescue equipment aboard to effect recovery, including self-rescue straps to relieve stress on a suspended victim, a lanyard spreader for shoulder harness D-rings for recovery from tanks, a tripod or beam clamp to provide an anchor point above a horizontal tank access, along with a recovery winch to facilitate hoisting, patient packaging and transport carriers, including a backboard, a rescue stretcher, and a Stokes litter. Every MSC ship has at least one person on board trained as an authorized rescuer. Federal laws, international maritime agreements, and Navy instructions mandate that ships conduct regular safety drills. The master has overall responsibility to ensure that drills and training are conducted.
Hoist away.
Crew members with confined space entry or rescue responsibilities must participate in a confined space entry and rescue drill held on board the ship at least once every 2 months. These drills should be as realistic as possible, simulating a real emergency and rescue operation from a confined space. Unannounced drills help reinforce familiarity with emergency alarms for all crew members.
So remember that rescue plan is going to be that basis on which we remember to do all these procedures.
Debriefing after drills will help identify any gaps in the ship's rescue plan and additional training needed. Refer to the SMS test, drill, inspection, and training record checklist for what's required by regulations, how often the drill should be conducted, and records of drill completion in the official logbook. Safety is everyone's responsibility on board MSC ships and shoreside. Awareness, adherence, and keen attention to the procedures, checklists, and regulations will help mitigate the risks and inherent dangers of confined space entry and help keep our workforce safe.